the Echo Division team remained fixated on the live feed. The glow of the northern lights illuminated the forest in soft, shifting hues, creating an almost serene backdrop to the tension playing out below. Gunnar stood near the center of the room, his focus unwavering as he communicated silently with Alpha through their shared connection. "Alpha's moving," Gunnar announced, his tone measured but firm. "He's heading toward the truck to observe the driver. Let's see how they react." On the monitors, the wolves moved like ghosts through the shadows. Alpha's massive form blended seamlessly with the forest, his piercing blue eyes reflecting the faint glow of the aurora. Omega trailed close behind, his movements fluid and deliberate. The wolves navigated the woods silently, their presence almost undetectable. Eli adjusted her seat, leaning forward. "I bet she doesn't even realize she's being watched." Clara's gaze remained on the screen, her expression thoughtful. "The timing's not a coincidence. They've seen the chopper, the lights. They know there's more going on. They're trying to piece it together." "Let them," Darren said with a smirk. "They're just giving us a better idea of how they think." On the feed, Evelyn froze at the sound of a snapping branch. The tension was palpable as she lowered herself defensively, her hand brushing against the charm at her waist. The room went quiet as the team watched her scan the darkness, the faint light of the aurora glinting off her blade. "That's a raccoon," Ashley remarked, her tone amused as the small creature shuffled into view. DeSara chuckled softly. "I'd be more worried if it wasn't. False alarms are better than the alternative." Eli glanced at the readings on her screen. Her heart rate spiked for a moment there. She's on edge, but she's handling it well. "Doesn't change the fact that she's out of her depth," Gunnar said, his voice steady. "Let's see if she realizes it." Evelyn's voice came through again, her conversation with Caleb catching the team's attention. Gunnar turned to Eliana and Maelorian. "Thoughts?" Maelorion's piercing gaze remained on the screen. The screen shifted again to show Alpha nearing the truck where Caleb was stationed. The wolf moved with deliberate purpose, his massive frame concealed by the shadows of the trees. Caleb remained unaware, his focus on the faint glow of his radio as he monitored his team. "Alpha's in position," Gunnar said quietly. "If he makes a move, it'll be calculated." Ashley smirked. "I almost feel bad for the guy. Almost." The tension in the room grew as they continued to watch, the interplay of light and shadow revealing the delicate balance of predator and prey. The pack was watching, waiting, and Echo Division was ready to act. Eli leaned over the console, adjusting the cameras to get a better view. "They've found the trail," she said, her tone matter of fact. "It's subtle, but they know it leads somewhere." Gunnar's expression was unreadable. "Let's see how far they go." "Alpha's heading toward the one at the truck," Gunnar said, his tone measured. "Let's see how jumpy he is." On the feed, Caleb remained seated in the driver's seat, his focus on the faint glow of his radio. He tapped the dashboard rhythmically, oblivious to the predator moving silently toward him. "This is what happens when you get too comfortable," Darren muttered, leaning back in his chair. "They're playing checkers, and we're playing chess." Eli glanced at him, arching an eyebrow. "For once, you're not wrong." Clara smirked. "Let's just hope they don't make it to the workshop. We've already tightened the perimeter, but I'd rather not test it tonight." Maelorion, his arms crossed, watched the scene with keen interest. "They're probing. Testing your defenses, it's a classic maneuver." "And a mistake," Gunnar added. "They're showing us their hand." Eliana's gaze remained on the screens, her expression thoughtful. "The lights are a distraction, but they're also a message. Whoever sent these two wants us to know they're not afraid." "They should be," Clara said. "This is our home." Eli adjusted another camera feed, her focus shifting. "Their tactics are sloppy, but they're learning as they go. That makes them unpredictable." Gunnar's cybernetic hand tapped the table lightly, his mind already calculating their next move. "Let's let this play out a bit longer. If they get too close, we'll shut them down. For now, we watch." The room fell silent again, the team's attention locked on the unfolding scene. The intruders were unwittingly offering Echo Division a perfect opportunity to test their own readiness, and to send a clear message to anyone else bold enough to try. "Amateurs," Darren muttered, leaning back in his chair. "He's wandering off alone. Rookie mistake." Gunnar didn't respond, his focus shifting to the figure by the truck. Caleb's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, casting long shadows as he moved toward the tree line. On the monitors, Caleb paused, his flashlight illuminating the faint tracks of a well-used trail cutting into the woods. "What's he looking at?" Clara asked, her tone sharp. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing at the screen. "A 2-track, Gunnar replied. "It leads toward one of the old access points. He's not the first to find it, but he's not going to like what's at the end of it." Malorian gestured to the screen, his voice calm but curious. "This facility is impressive for mortals. The layout is strategic." "We didn't build it for comfort," Gunnar replied. "We built it to prepare." On another monitor, Evelyn crouched by a tree, her form blending into the shadows. Her gaze shifted between the compound's fence and the trail beyond the barn. "They're tense," Clara observed, her tone quiet. She knows something's off, but she can't figure out what. "She's good at staying low," Darren admitted, a hint of respect in his voice. "But if she's smart, she'll keep moving." She's on the feed. Evelyn froze as a K9 patrol passed nearby, the guard and dog moving with mechanical precision. She lowered herself further into the shadows, her hand brushing a charm at her waist. "She's spooked," Darren said, his tone amused. "Doesn't take much, huh?" "She's smart enough to stay out of sight," Clara countered. "That's more than I can say for the guy at the truck." Alpha's movements were a blur in the dark, his large form slipping between the trees without a sound. Through their bond, Gunnar could feel the wolf's tension as it moved closer to Caleb's position. "Alpha's nearing the truck," Gunnar said. "Let's see how our friend reacts." Omega, not far behind, flanked the other side of the trail, his presence ensuring there was no escape route. "They're herding him," Mallory observed, his tone admiring. "Clever." Gunnar's cybernetic hand rested on the console, his sharp gaze never leaving the screen. "They've done this before." As the pack observed the scene unfold, the northern lights continued to ripple across the sky, their surreal beauty a stark contrast to the tense, calculated maneuvers below. Every movement, every decision made by the intruders was a piece of the puzzle, and Echo Division was determined to solve it. The man had stepped away from the truck, his flashlight bobbing in the dark as he inspected the 2-track trail. Caleb's voice came through the intercepted comms, hesitant but steady. "This isn't just some trail. Looks like trucks. Lots of them." Eli adjusted the audio, sharpening the feed. Gunnar's jaw tightened. "He's too close. We're taking him down before he gets any ideas." Turning to the team, he issued his orders with precision. "Ashley DeSera, you're up. Take him quietly. No noise, no mess." Ashley nodded, already checking her sidearm. "Got it, boss." DeSera smirked, slinging her rifle over her shoulder. "Let's go bag us a nosy hiker." Before they could move out, Gunnar's focus shifted to the shadows on the screen. "Hold on. Alpha's moving in." Through his bond with Alpha, Gunnar felt the wolf's gleeful anticipation. The massive, dire wolf prowled silently through the darkness, his glowing golden eye fixed on the lone figure below. Omega followed a few paces behind, his youthful energy barely contained. This was a lesson for him, a chance to learn from the master. "Alpha's in position," Gunnar said, his tone low. "Let's see how this plays out." Malorian observed the screen, his expression a mix of intrigue and approval. "Your bond with them is remarkable. They move with purpose, like extensions of your will." "Years of working together," Gunnar replied. "Alpha knows what he's doing." Caleb hesitated at the edge of the trail, his flashlight sweeping across the ruts in the dirt. The faint rustling of leaves made him pause, his body tensing. Stay by the truck, Caleb. Don't wander off. Evelyn's voice crackled through the comm. I wasn't planning to, Caleb muttered, but his grip on the flashlight tightened as the rustling grew louder. Then, from the shadows, a low, menacing growl rumbled through the air. Caleb froze, his eyes darting toward the sound. The flashlight beam landed on a pair of glowing yellow eyes, and his breath caught in his throat. Alpha stepped into the beam of light, his massive form looming over Caleb like a nightmare-given shape. The wolf's lips curled back in a snarl, exposing sharp, glistening teeth. Good boy, Gunnar murmured, watching the screen with a faint smirk. Scare him, but don't touch him. As Caleb stumbled backward, fumbling for his comm, Omega darted in from the side. Quick as a flash, the younger wolf snatched the comm from Caleb's hand, crushing it between his powerful jaws. The faint sound of static died with the crunch of plastic and metal. That's my boy, Clara said with a proud grin. Learning from the best. On screen, Caleb was panicking, his flashlight beam shaking wildly as he tried to back away. The two wolves began to circle him, their movements calculated and predatory. Alpha growled again, lunging forward just enough to make Caleb stumble. The man turned, running instinctively down the path, exactly where the wolves wanted him to go. Omega stayed close behind, snapping at his heels but never making contact. Alpha followed at a measured pace, his growls echoing through the forest like a predator toying with his prey. They're herding him, Eliana observed, her voice tinged with admiration. This is more than instinct. This is strategy. They've done this before, Gunnar said, his eye never leaving the screen. As Caleb barreled down the trail, Ashley and DeSara moved into position, their forms blending seamlessly with the shadows. DeSara raised a hand, signaling Ashley to wait. Here he comes, DeSara muttered, her voice barely audible. Caleb burst through the underbrush, panting and disoriented. Before he could react, Ashley tackled him with precision, pinning him to the ground. DeSara moved in swiftly, securing his arms and cuffing him with practiced efficiency. Got him, Ashley said into her comm, her voice steady, bringing him in. The wolves circled once before retreating back into the darkness, their job done. In the war room, Gunnar watched as the live feed shifted to the workshop's entrance. Ashley and Desiree escorted the struggling Caleb inside, their movements calm and controlled. That was almost too easy, Darren remarked, leaning back in his chair. Don't get cocky, Gunnar replied. This was just the warm-up. Let's see what he knows. As the team regrouped, the faint glow of the northern lights began to fade, leaving the forest cloaked in darkness once more. Caleb sat cuffed in a sturdy chair at the center of the room, his shoulders tense but his expression attempting to feign calm. Across from him, Gunnar stood, his imposing figure amplified by the shadow cast on the wall behind him. Darren leaned casually against the far wall, Thunderstrike resting on his shoulder, a smirk playing on his lips. Eliana and Mylorion watched silently from the corner, their otherworldly presence unnerving Caleb more than he'd admit. Eli was seated nearby, a data tablet in hand, recording every word with precision. Gunnar's voice broke the silence, low and commanding. Start talking, Caleb. Why were you snooping around our perimeter? Caleb shifted slightly in his seat, his eyes flicking to Darren. I think you already know why I'm here. Darren straightened, his smirk widening as recognition dawned. Well, look who it is. The guy from the Shadow Realm bar. You were with that witch, Evelyn, and that little sneaky one. Argoz, right? You were tailing her while the captain tried to bring her in. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond immediately. Oh, don't clam up now, Darren pressed, stepping forward. You were quick enough to jump into that mess at the bar. Now you're trespassing here. That's not a coincidence. Gunnar folded his arms. Darren's right. You're clearly connected to something bigger. So let me ask again. What are you doing here? Caleb exhaled sharply, his gaze darting between Gunnar and Darren. We're trying to figure out what your pack wants with Argoz, why the Guardians are here, why you're all so interested in her. Eliana's expression darkened, her piercing blue eyes narrowing. "And who sent you to find out?" Caleb hesitated, his defiance faltering under her scrutiny. "No one sent me. I'm just concerned. She's been on the run for months, and now she's hiding in the shadow realm. Then you show up and suddenly the Guardians are involved. It doesn't take a genius to figure out you're looking for her." Darren snorted. "Concerned, huh? Let me guess. Rose sent you on this little scavenger hunt?" Caleb flinched slightly, giving Darren all the confirmation he needed. "Thought so," Darren said, crossing his arms. "What's her play here? Trying to keep tabs on us? Or is she working her own angle with Argoz?" "She's trying to protect her territory," Caleb snapped. "You think she wants you or the Guardians meddling in her business?" "And then there's Argoz. She's not just some petty thief. She's—" "Enough," Gunnar interrupted, his tone sharp. "We don't care about Rose's territorial games. What we care about is why you're here and what you're trying to accomplish." Caleb leaned forward slightly, his defiance returning. "You want the truth? Fine. Rose thinks you're after Argoz. She's not wrong to be nervous. Wherever the pack goes, trouble follows. And if you think the Guardians being here isn't setting off alarm bells, you're delusional." Eliana stepped forward, her voice calm but ice-cold. "What do you know of Argoz? Speak plainly." Caleb hesitated again, his eyes flicking to my Lorion, whose presence seemed to weigh on him like a physical force. Finally, he exhaled. "She's a target for a reason. Whatever she's carrying, whoever's chasing her, it's bigger than Rose, bigger than you. I don't know all the details, but it's enough to make even Rose tread carefully." Darren chuckled, but there was no humour in it. "Rose, tread carefully, that's a first." Gunnar leaned in slightly, his tone low and dangerous. "If this is a game to you, Caleb, I suggest you rethink your position. The Black Dawn is no joke, and if you're caught up in their mess, you're already in over your head." At the mention of the Black Dawn, Caleb's expression shifted, a flicker of unease crossing his face. He opened his mouth to speak, but Gunnar held up a hand. "We're done for now. You'll stay here under guard until we figure out what to do with you." Darren smirked as he stood, looking down at Caleb. "Welcome to the workshop, pal. Hope you like the accommodations." As Gunnar and the others turned to leave, Caleb's voice stopped them. "If you're really going after the Black Dawn, you're going to need more than wolves and fancy weapons. They're not just a threat, they're a storm." Gunnar paused, his back to Caleb. "We'll weather it. You worry about yourself." Without another word, the group exited, leaving Caleb alone, setting in the corner. The war room hummed with quiet tension. Caleb sat stiffly in a chair at the edge of the table, his hands cuffed in front of him. The faint glow from the monitors illuminated his face, reflecting the mix of curiosity and unease in his expression. The monitors displayed live feeds of the surrounding forest, the faint outlines of Argoz and Evelyn moving cautiously through the shadows. Gunnar stood nearby, his posture firm and commanding, arms crossed as he studied Caleb. "Enjoying the view?" he asked, his tone as sharp as his gaze. Caleb glanced at him, his attempt at nonchalance betrayed by the nervous twitch in his jaw. "I've got to admit," he said, forcing a smirk, "this is impressive. Way more high-tech than I figured for a bunch of wolves and mercs." Darren leaned against the wall, twirling Thunderstrike idly in his hands. "Mercs? Cute. You think we're some hired muscle operation." Eli, sitting at the console, didn't look up from her screens as she chimed in. "We're a little more complicated than that. But don't let us stop you from underestimating us. It's entertaining." Caleb's eyes darted to the monitors again. He watched as the camera feeds flicked between angles, a thermal view of the tree line, a wide shot of the compound's edge. "This is a lot," Caleb admitted, his bravado faltering. "All of this for what? A goblin and her babysitter? Feels a little overkill." Gunnar's voice cut through the air like steel. "That's because you don't understand what you've walked into." Eliana stepped forward, her presence commanding yet calm. You've stumbled into a conflict far greater than you realize. Your curiosity, while admirable, has placed you in the center of something that could destroy you and your world. Caleb blinked, the weight of her words settling in. You make it sound like I'm some chess piece in a cosmic game. Maybe you are, Mylorion said evenly, his gaze piercing. But a pawn can still disrupt the board if used correctly, or recklessly. Caleb hesitated, his shoulders tensing as he tried to maintain his composure. All right, he said, leaning forward slightly. You've got the fancy tech, the wolves, the whatever they are. He glanced at Melorion and Eliana, unsure of how to classify them. But why all this interest in Argoz? What's she done to earn your attention? Shouldn't we be asking you that? Gunnar countered, his tone unwavering. You're working with Rose. You've been poking around places you don't belong. Why? Caleb hesitated, his smirk returning but weaker this time. Just trying to understand what I'm dealing with. Argoz isn't exactly an open book, and when I see guardians showing up out of nowhere, it raises a few questions. Darren chuckled, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Oh, so you're a concerned citizen now? That's rich. Caleb's eyes flicked back to the monitors, watching as Argoz and Evelyn continued their cautious approach. You're tracking them like prey, he muttered, almost to himself. Gunnar stepped closer, his towering presence looming over Caleb. And you're helping them trespass on protected ground. What's your angle? Caleb met Gunnar's gaze, his defiance returning in a flicker. My angle? Trying to figure out what you people are hiding, why you're so interested in Argoz, and why you're working with guardians. His voice lowered, tinged with genuine curiosity. You're not just some rogue operation. You've got power, connections. This is bigger than I thought. Eli finally turned to face him, her violet eyes sharp and unyielding. You've got no idea how big this is, and if you're smart, you'll stop playing games and start answering questions. Caleb's smirk faltered as he realized just how outmatched he was. The room, filled with Echo Division's quiet intensity and the ethereal presence of the elves, pressed down on him. For the first time, he truly grasped the magnitude of the forces he was dealing with. As the silence stretched, Darren broke it with his trademark grin. You know what I think? I think you're scared. You've got that deer-in-the-headlights look, like you're starting to realize you've bitten off more than you can chew. Caleb's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. The truth was, Darren wasn't wrong. Every second in the room made him more aware of just how deep he was in, and how dangerous these people were. Gunnar straightened, his voice cutting through the tension. We'll deal with you later. For now, you're going to sit there and stay quiet. Caleb opened his mouth to protest, but the look in Gunnar's eye silenced him. He leaned back in his chair, watching as the team returned their focus to the monitors. The faint hum of the war room filled the space once more, leaving Caleb to stew in his growing unease.
All right, you've made it this far. That means either you like what you're seeing, or you're lost. Either way, no harm in sticking around, right? Go on, hit that subscribe button, join the team, and while you're at it, hit like, because, let's be honest, you're already invested. And the bell? That's for you if you don't want to miss any of the action. You wouldn't want me to come find you. See you soon, and remember, once you're in, you're family.